That is an unbelievable array of stuff behind you, though.
I was going to say, that is a very busy background. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a long story, but I used to be in the corner, but I've moved to a standing desk recently, so it means that all my junk is behind me rather than...
I mean, is it junk? Oh, damn.
No. I mean, technically it is junk, but I don't perceive it as such. But I mean, a lot of this is like the contents of a location that we shot in, and the guy was like, they're going to come and like throw all this in a skip, and I was like, oh, that's mine then. So a whole load of like nice, 80s tape recorders and various from all that stuff. So
that's so cool, man. Are you gonna be all right standing?
Oh, this is what I do all the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet, cool. Well, Jamie just throws out a little intro. We introduce you to the show, and then we're gonna absolutely bombard the hell out of you with questions.
Awesome. I shall look forward to it.
Just want to confirm pronunciation of the company. Is it Mycho?
No, it's Mycho.
Mycho. See, that's why I double checked.
But everybody says it the way that you said it.
It's a good job I double checked then, isn't it? Yeah, wonderful. Right, let's get started. Let me do my little intro. Ladies and gents, joining us today, we have a man who is, quite frankly, one of the longest lists of IMDb credits I've ever seen. He's an actor, a writer, a director for a long list of movies, creating several amazing future horror movie icons. Today, we welcome the genius behind Mycho Pictures, Mr. MJ Dixon.
Hello.
Hello.
That was quite an intro. I've never been called. I don't think I've ever been called a genius before, so I'll accept it. I mean, apart from when I worked at the Apple store, and I never worked there.
Brilliant. Oh, this is going to be fun. MJ,
It will.
how was your 2020, my friend?
Terrible. As I'm sure everybody else's was.
Yeah.
I mean, ours was particularly difficult, I think. But yeah, no, it wasn't very good. I'm glad to see the back of it.
Even though it's been brought over into 2021 slightly, we're still going through this.
So far, I'm more like, it's, I mean, in general, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
Go for it.
In general, the world is still a shit show. But personally, like, things are not as bad as they were last year so far. So.
Okay. Good. Did you teach yourself anything new? Learn anything new, like that you wouldn't have done normally?
I mean, I learn new stuff every day. Cripplingly, horrifically bad stuff about the human race. But I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, I think you teach yourself stuff all the time, don't you? I did plan to like really teach myself like new skills, but I think what I've really done is just kind of honed my old skills a lot more, which is something you don't most of the time get time for, I think. So, but that was purely because I had nothing else to do. It wasn't like a conscious like, oh, I'll become good at this. I just thought, oh, I've got nothing else to do. I might as well do that loads, and then by proxy become better at it.
So before we get into this, I need to confirm something. IMDb says you've got 61 director credits. Is that right?
Well, I mean, that's not including music videos and stuff, which they don't let you put on there. So it's over 100, I think.
Jesus, that is insane.
But yeah, because they don't. Well, most of my work is music videos, but they don't let you list that really on IMDb. So that's just narrative film work, I think. I mean, that's all right.
That's incredible.
That's nothing, honestly, compared to some people I know. That's
amateur hour over here.
Well, no, I mean that's in terms of narrative stuff. Films. That's correct. Yeah.
That is nuts. I was like, this can't be right. Surely no man has that much time in their life. That's insane.
I don't have any time. That's the trade-off. Ultimately.
So take us back. Where did this all begin? Was it a love of film, or was it horror movies specifically that took you down this path?
I mean, I think from a very young age, I knew that I was going to do something like this. I think, but mainly because I was always told, well, you're going to have to get a job when you're older. And I thought, that sounds terrible. But I would always say to myself, well, if I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get something I like doing, so at least it doesn't feel like that. Obviously, that's a kind of childish outlook on it, but I think I started off, when I left school, I had my plans to become a writer, I think. And then but I'd always fantasized about one day someone will make movies of my writing, and so I was just writing short stories, really, with the idea of starting off doing a book of short stories. That was what I was going to do. And I just ended up kind of accidentally helping out on some little slasher movie shot on someone's camcorder that they were making. And they said, they didn't really know anyone. Can you come down and be in this? And I just, I kind of thought, I think I could do this, write my own stuff. And so I just kind of started, I went to the local college. There was a media college, and they'd had a media studies course, and it was all about studying how newspapers manipulate us, and learning how to use Illustrator to put magazines together. But for 1 hour every week, we got to take these huge VHS cameras that they'd obviously had handed down to them from an old TV station, and we got to go and practice shots for filmmaking. And so I just used that time constantly. I wouldn't listen to any other lesson just all week. Right, when we get to this moment, what are you doing then? And I'd be drawing storyboards and writing scripts on little bits of paper and stuff. And then I just did that for years and years and years until I could afford my own stuff and my own camera. And even then, it wasn't very good, But then as I was graduating from I went to a film college where they taught you how to make corporate videos and stuff. And as I was graduating from there, I was talking to a guy. I've talked about this guy all the time, and honestly, I cannot remember his name. It was someone we didn't talk to. I didn't really talk to him that much when we were at college. And then we all went for a drink, the whole class went for a drink when we were graduating. And I said, what are you doing next, to this guy? Because we hadn't really communicated much over the last couple of years. And he said, oh, well, he said, I'm going to go to university. And I was like, well, I feel like they're not going to really teach me anything I don't already know there. And he said, well, my plan is to go there, borrow all their fancy equipment and just make films for the next 3 years. And I was like, my God, this guy's a genius.
That's fucking brilliant.
That's what I did. I just, I rang down universities to see who had space for me, until I landed in a place called Preston. I'm from Sunderland originally, in case you can't tell.
I mean, no, I couldn't, but...
So, a place called Preston, which I'd never heard of. And then 3 weeks later, I moved there and just started, rinsing the university's, film stores for decent equipment. And I just started making films and making films and making films. And Mycho was kind of born up. I was making so much stuff, and I needed just something to go at the beginning of that, a label or something. And I didn't like Dixon Productions. It sounded really kind of a bit lame. So I just kind of came up with the name Mycho, which was a cross between my first name, Mike, and one of my favorite films, which is Psycho. And I just kind of blended them together. I was like, oh, that sounds quite cool. And at the time I was like, that's not even a real word. So no one can steal it. And that was it. That's where it came from. And then I've just been making stuff under that label ever since.
I mean, that is absolutely genius to go to university and be like, I don't want to study anything. I just want to use my stuff so I can make all these movies.
Oh man, yeah, that. I don't know what would happen to me had that guy not give me that idea.
When your short stories when you did at college, then what were they horror based, or were they just general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd always really been into superhero comics and horror stuff, and that was kind of my thing as a kid. So I think, but yeah, all the stuff I used to write was horror. I'm not sure why. It's just that was what interested me. I think again, growing up in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, you'd go to video shops all the time, and the horror section was always the most interesting section of that. All the covers and everything. So I think that I always looked at that and thought there's a world of possibilities of what all these covers the stories these covers could be telling, and because you couldn't watch them, you start imagining them as a kid, and then so that was it really. I think that's what really spawned that. I saw Halloween when I was 11, and I think I nearly died, and that, like, I think that was when my brain was like, "Oh, that was cool. That was a cool experience," and so that was it.
That's incredible. So the first credit under your name on your IMDb is a project called Once Bitten. So what was the story behind that?
So back when we were borrowing this camera once a week, eventually we got set off to make. We had to go make 2 projects. One had to be narrative, and one had to be like a documentary. And I had literally no interest in doing this documentary, but the narrative thing, I was all over it. So we had to form little production teams, and Once Bitten was this kind of like really awful cliched idea that I came up with. That was just really about it's about a guy who gets bitten. I thought I was being super original and stuff, back in 1999. But the idea was, I thought you always see people running around being vampires, but you never really see like the transition of that. Like, you get bitten by a vampire and then what happens? This all sounds really arty, but honestly, I approached it like a hack. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was like, I approached it like a 16-year-old, who thinks he's got, everything in the world to say. But, it was shot on like big VHS tapes. You put the whole tape in the camera and then it had to go on your shoulder. We didn't have a tripod heavy enough to support it. So, every shot was on your shoulder. Or I think at one point we were hanging out of like my mate's loft, and we made it twice. We shot most of it with 2 different actors. And then obviously, because like you're 16, you kind of cast your mates, and that we'd cast like a friend of the producer, and she did half the film and then was like, I'm not really interested in like all this kind of acting and that. So she dropped out, and then we had to change it. So originally I wasn't even in the film, but then I ended up playing the main character. And like, there's a scene in it where I'm like, I was supposed to be trying to wrap bandages around this bite on my neck, but being a kid trying to make a movie, I hadn't prepared at all. So I was like, "You got any bandages?" And like, "No." And I was like, "Oh man, what are we gonna do?" So I was like, "There's some toilet roll here." So there's like a scene, no cut, just where I walk in and I'm like wrapping fucking flimsy toilet roll around my neck. But obviously I can't get it tight enough because it breaks. So I'm just fantastic. I loved it. But honestly, it was a great experience, and it taught me a lot of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, one thing I'll say is that, and I say this to anyone who wants to get into films, is it didn't come naturally to me. Like, I wanted to do it, but I was not naturally gifted at it at all. Like, and I was aware of that, and I just kept trying. And like, I'd go, "Why is it bad? I don't know." And I'd keep working at it, and then eventually, like, I want to say I got good, because I certainly didn't, but I definitely got less bad at doing it, like. So there we go. I'm a testament to patience.
When was the last time you watched that?
Well, weirdly, I had to watch it quite recently. I found an old tape that was smashed, like, the top had been caved in, like someone had stood on it. I was like, "What's this?" And I put it in, and it was the only copy of that film that I had. And it had been getting progressively more and more red over the years as the tape had deteriorated. So
Yeah.
I transferred it to digital, and I think it was our 10th anniversary, I think. I put it up on YouTube for people to watch.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, like I say, it's not good, but it exists. It's
But
there.
it's that moment in history for you. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. And it took, like, everything teaches you loads. Everything you do teaches you. So it was a good, fun first step for me, I think.
So when you decided,
I'm doing after this.
yeah, definitely. So when you decided to make Mycho, was the decision always this is going to be horror movies, or was it just let's make whatever we want?
Well, I've just always really liked horror movies, I think. So that was always going to be the kind of thing I wanted to do. I mean, for me, horror is a really good foundation to do everything. Like, so every one of our films is kind of a different genre, but it's built on a foundation of like, not even horror really, but like the slasher subgenre. So I've always thought that's kind of like the perfect distillation of horror. You know, the masked killer going around picking off each person one by one until there's only one person left. And that's, to me, I think a really, really great kind of boiling down to the salt of what horror is. So I've always tried to take that foundation and then build something interesting or new on top of it. And that's kind of what I wanted the Mycho universe, which it ended up becoming, to kind of do.
That's awesome. And you're absolutely right as well, because you think about your Halloween, your Friday the 13th, they're always, this is a killer, these are all the kids, let's kill them after there's one left. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're credited to a ton of short movies before your first feature length. So was there a particular reason you stuck to shorts for the first, I think it's about 6 years? And what made you finally take that plunge to do Slasher House in 2010, the first feature length?
Well, really, it was, like I say, I did that first film and I was fully aware it wasn't very good. And so what I realised was, over the next few years, I tried to get stuff off the ground. I think, well, the next one will be good, though, you know. So it took me a couple of years. And back then, film equipment wasn't particularly accessible either. So it was a case of I'd try and get some stuff together. I'd borrow a camera and I'd go and shoot something. But I'd come across other new pitfalls, you know. So the first time I was like, oh, well, sometimes I let other people shoot too much of that film, so I'll take control of that element. But then I was letting sound get by, or I wasn't getting actors who were good enough, or, you know, or I was still getting my friends to come and fill roles when they weren't actors and things like that. And so I was learning as I went, really. So when I went to university, what I did was I literally just started making film after film after film. I'd write something, I'd go make it, edit it, put it out, done. Just go make something else. And I think not all of them made it to like finished things, but I think over about 2 or 3 years, I did about 25 films in some form. Just really like, why was that bad? Right, okay. Like, so the lighting was crap this time. So I went and bought some lights and, you know, they were like, you know, cheap desk lamps or whatever. And I'd use them, but it's still not good enough. All right, I need to get the microphone closer. So I'd go and buy an extension cord and I'd have someone holding the mic closer to the actors. And every time I'd just be trying to figure out how to make this stuff better. And I just did that for years and years and years and years and years. And then I did my final thesis film for university, which was called West, because usually when you go to university, you make about 1 or 2 films a year. So a lot of people will leave in university with like, you know, 4 or 5 films under their belt at the most. But while I was there, outside of those that I handed in every year, I made about another 20 odd films, you know. And so when I left, I'd made my final thesis film thinking, right, so this is the distillation of everything I've learned so far. And it was fine, and I made a load of mistakes on it still. And we went to the Manchester Picture House, and it screened there. And there was a load of technical problems with it that I hadn't even thought about because I was so used to making films, distilling them down to like a small file size and putting them on YouTube, which was still kind of in its infancy at the time, that I just hadn't considered. So when I came out of that, I said, right, I need to sit down and just look at all of this and go, it's fine, but it's not good enough. And why? You know, and that was kind of the restart point for me, I think, which is kind of where I'm at now. If you go on our website, I kind of start from that restart point, which is a film I made called I Spy for the Horror Channel. And it was like a competition they'd run, and you had to make a 2-minute horror film. And they'd air it in between the films that they were showing on the Horror Channel, which was only available on Sky, I think, at the time. So it wasn't even like you could just tune into it. So it was only a very small kind of cross-section of people who could even watch it. But we went and made this 2-minute short film, and I borrowed the best equipment I could, and I was editing on like my PC that I'd had for 10 years, and I was basically getting like 20 minutes work out of it and then its RAM would fill up, and I'd have to restart the whole thing, and it was just a nightmare. But I got this film done. We sent it to the Horror Channel, and we never heard back from them. I don't know, because I didn't have Sky or anything. I don't even know if they ever played it. I know they played a bunch of these 2-minute films, but we never knew whether they played it or not. But then I had this kind of 2-minute short film, which was okay, because it was, like I say, it was all the mistakes that I'd made that I tried to learn from. And so I think it was probably one of the best things I'd done up to that point. So I just started whacking it into like film festivals and competitions and stuff. And it got voted one of the best. There used to be a range of horror films they released every year called 8 Films to Die For. And they were released in like really nice packaging and stuff. And they were kind of like new indie horrors that were kind of like the next generation of filmmakers and stuff. And to promote that, they did a competition called 8 Shorts to Die For. And we entered that, and we came first, judged by Dee Snider from Twisted Sister.
Amazing.
He was the judge in it, and he judged our film the best. And so that was like a really good kind of, what do I want to say? Like, that really propelled me to kind of go, oh, what are we going to do next? And so I started trying to put a feature together called Creepsville, which was kind of like a thing I'd been working on for years and years and years and years and years. And I always thought this is going to be the first feature-length film that I make. And then, because this film did quite well in competitions and things, we started getting emails from like horror websites and stuff saying, we really liked your short film. When are you going to do a feature? And I was like, oh, it's funny you should say that. And so I tried to make this film called Creepsville. But I think the big mistake I made was that I tried to make it too professionally with no money. So although we had no budget, I was like, we can do this because we have access to the equipment and we know actors and all this. But I think I handed out too many roles to too many different people. And so like we had like an editor and a light guy and, all the way down the line, there was about 25 crew members on this thing, and I think eventually it just completely got away from me. And there's a kind of a cut that still exists of it, but it's a film that never quite got finished. But because when it went into post-production, I was talking to the editor and he said, it's going to take about 18 months to put the whole thing together. I thought, that's too long. Like, and because I wasn't doing that job, I felt like I didn't really have any control over that. So I thought, that's too much time. So I went back and dug out a script that I'd kind of been mulling around. I wrote it in 2005, but I'd been mulling around for years before that. It was a film called Slasher House, and it was like 5 actors in one location. And I thought, I can do this with like nobody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need 25 other people doing different jobs. I thought, I need a small crew and 5 actors, and I can make this film like on nothing, and so I think originally my plan was like, well, we'll go and raise like $1 million, and then it was like, okay, like, well, $500,000, quarter, 5, how much have we got? $5,000, $5,000 it is, and it was kind of like, it was kind of like that, and so that's kind of where it came from. I just kind of thought, well, while this other film's going through post-production, I'll go and do this thing that I've always wanted to do. And that was kind of, that's how Slash House kind of came about.
That's awesome. And the fact you managed to finish that one before you finished the other one says something as well.
Oh, yeah. I think we've finished like 9 since then, and that one's still not done. So
I love the characters you have for the Mycho universe. I especially love the look of the panda-headed killer. I absolutely love that design. It looks awesome. It looks terrifying. It's brilliant. So where do you get your inspiration for these main villains?
It's kind of weird. Like, the weirdest thing is one of our most famous characters is called Cleaver the Killer Clown. And he was written into Slasher House. Like, he's in it for the first 10 minutes. But he's on the cover, which caused me no end of hassle. That was like a distributor decision, so we didn't get to decide how it was marketed. They just put this clown on the cover, And I thought, well, that's a bit of a problem, because essentially when I first wrote the film, I was like, what's like the most cliched thing I can think of? And so we decided like the first bad guy was going to be this super cliche, which was like a killer clown with a meat cleaver. And I thought, we'll get him in, we'll get rid of him, and then we can move on to the interesting stuff. And of course, what happened was everyone started sending me emails and stuff after the film came out going, when are we getting a film about the clown? And I was like, oh man, so I'd never even planned for that. And so he kind of really took off. And it was very much the same so the first Slasher House, we kind of introduced like 4 serial killers, which was Cleaver, Thorne, Nathan, and Corbin. So with Slasher House 2, essentially we kind of wanted to do the same thing, where we introduced 4 new serial killers. And again, I did the stupid thing of thinking, well, I'm just going to write like a daft cliche thing at the beginning. So we'd always joked, there was a line in the first Cleaver spin-off movie where someone says, if we don't get this in check, it'll be pandemonium. And I said, that'll be our next film, Killer Panda. And people would go, nah, come on, don't be daft. And I go, I'm telling you, and then it came to writing Slasher House 2, and I was like, well, what we're going to have is like the first kind of kill. And the idea was just to have like a random serial killer to set up like the idea of the story. And so I kind of designed this guy who wore like a suit and a big kind of panda head. And he was just kind of like a riff on a film called Executive Koala from Japan, which is like about like a businessman who's a koala who like hates his job and goes and murders everyone, like his wife and everyone in his office, And it was just we wanted to kind of branch out into like a bigger world building. So we wanted to have each character come from like different corners of the world. So we wanted like a kind of East Asian character, and so the panda kind of thing just kind of was like, right, yeah, that works, So I designed him thinking this guy's going to show up, threatening people, he's going to get killed, and that'll be the end of him. And then the guy who plays him, Dave Chu, he turned up, and the second he started speaking, we just kind of went, well, he's getting his own film, isn't he? Like, it was literally like that. Like the second the voice came out the mask, you went, oh, right, well, it's the guy who's getting his own film, And so I think you kind of just design stuff like with the idea of, oh, what's interesting, what's fun, what'll be fun to make. But you never know what's going to land, really, and everything develops like that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So with the actors who play these characters, how do you try and make sure they understand the vision that you have for the killer? Or do you basically go, right, it's a guy with a panda for a head, go?
Oh, I know actors don't listen to you, so they just do whatever they want, and like you're going, whoa, reel it in. No, I mean, I think it's quite important to work with people who kind of understand what you're doing anyway. So like, but I mean, I've been quite lucky in terms of I've had a lot of actors who've come to work with me have been very collaborative people. So we get to discuss a lot of what we're thinking. Also, because I'm drawing on a lot of horror tropes, I can kind of say, go and look at this character. Like I think with Corbin on Slash House 1, Welly, who I knew he had the chops for it because he played a character in Creepsville when we were making that. So I just kind of said, well, go and look at like Hannibal Lecter and characters like that, much more psychological killers than guys who wear masks, and have think about that, like the guy like Mick Taylor from Wolf Creek. Go and look at characters like that, and that's kind of where we're going. And so we go and look at that, and he'd come back, with a good shorthand for what we were trying to achieve. Like Cleaver, I'd imagined him being just kind of like Freddy Krueger, kind of like shrieking and like, like Gary Busey when he looks in the mirror and sees himself as a clown. You're doing fine, But Andy, the day before, was kind of like, I'd been saying, I was a bit worried because Slash House 1, the idea is that like it's supposed to be 4 of the world's worst serial killers in the house with this one girl. And I was a bit concerned that like all these famous serial killers seem to be British people from northeast England, and or northwest England, sorry. And I was like, oh right, that's an issue, So Andy, who was playing Cleaver the day before, kind of came up and said, he said, what do you think about me doing like a Texas drawl? And I was like, all right, let me hear it. And he came out, he's like, hey there, I'm gonna kill y'all, and I was like, love it, let's do that. Yeah, why not? But I shot myself in the foot, because then when people started asking for a Cleaver film, I'm like, oh, he's American though, isn't he? So we're now having to try and make a film that's set in America, but obviously we've got no budget to fly there. So like in 2014, 2015, we were just desperately trying to like make anywhere we could look like kind of like southern state America to try and shoot this clown feature. It was just bizarre. Like,
that must have been so difficult. Things like road signs, just anything like.
Well, like
just tiny details like that.
Cars were the hardest part, honestly. Like I used so many bloody Matchbox models and like fake, fake focus and perspective, and we had to CG a load of signs and stuff. And then when we did a sequel, everyone thought, well, you'll just move that to the UK, make your life easier. And I was like, nah, double down. So we literally for the sequel, we did like a killer clown road movie, where they're traveling across back road America. And we just, like I say, we just fully doubled down on it. And, but it paid off because we had more time to find locations, I think, and stuff, and just expand that world a little bit more. And the big thing was like we made sure that like almost all of our cast were American, and that really helped sell the whole thing. But that's what happened. You make a split-second decision like that one night, when you haven't slept for 16 hours, and some actor goes, "What do you think of this?" And you go, "Yeah, sounds good." And then 5 years later, you're like, I can't find anywhere that looks like, Tennessee back roads. Please help me. I've actually got, that's one of the, I think we had 2 license plates in the film that we just had to like gaffer tape onto like people's cars and stuff to kind of try and get away with. In the background would be like, you can see that license plate, and you'd grab one of these, like these things that people buy when they go like on holiday or whatever. We're just sticking them on cars in the background, and and that's just what you do. That's it.
But that is an impressive attention to detail, though, because some people might not have even thought of that.
Don't get me started on the fact that Americans drive on the other side of their cars. So
oh shit, yeah. We had
to literally flip every car shot in the film, which means that any maps had to be printed backwards if they were going to be in a car. Any leaflets had to be printed backwards. Any clothing had to be swapped. Like, any items. Man. Oh my God. Like, I can't even tell you. It was just, we had whole scenes where like, I mean, if you watch the film closely, you can see where like our actors fucking turning the steering wheel that's just not even connected to the car. And we've got the actress in the passenger seat trying to drive on the shuttle with her hands down here, working all the gas, because obviously he had to be on one side, but we couldn't operate it's just, and that's what you do. I honestly, it would blag your head constantly. You'd be like, what side of the car are they on? What road are they on? What leaflet do we need for this? And and when you haven't slept for 3 days because you're behind schedule, you're like, I don't know what's happening. What's going on? So
that is absolutely insane. Fair play. I'm impressed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm impressed. That's amazing. So you mentioned earlier that the Mycho universe, like a shared universe. So how have you connected this all? Is it through Slasher House, like these 4 characters have done this, or is it recurring characters or just a really unfortunate town?
Well, I mean, essentially, so what it started off is I wanted to make this kind of like huge, sprawling, epic fantasy that was kind of like a combination of all horror stuff that I really liked. The best way I can describe it is kind of like Lord of the Rings, set in like meets Hellraiser 2, set in like the kind of modern kind of London. But I realised very quickly on like script 2 that this kind of great sprawling epic trilogy I was trying to write just wasn't possible, like, you know, with the resources that I had. And so over the years, I kind of started going, well, what have you told like some smaller stories based in the same thing, you know, like, and the idea was to kind of really just start off telling these little kind of pocket tales in this world, and then build out into this big plan that I had essentially. And so I thought, well, I'll do that when I'm older. And then the years go by, and you start to go, oh shit, I am a bit older now. Like, you know, I should probably start making a move on that. And so Slash House was just really like the point in the middle where I thought, okay, and then we can kind of build out from there, I guess, you know. And so Slash House just really was the smallest idea I think that I had in this world. And I thought, well, that's a good like setup point, because I can just kind of do that and then use that as a springboard for the characters that appear in that. So I think we did Slasher House, and then we started doing kind of prequels to it. So we did Legacy of Thorn, which is like the prequel about Thorn. So that's like set in like another town, which is its own thing completely. And then we did one called Hollower, which was about the character called Nathan that's in that film, and that was like a one location horror, like psychological thriller that we did. And we managed to get Nicholas Vince from Hellraiser to come and be in it. Just, I don't know how it happened, just purely randomly. We were at a convention screening Legacy of Thorn, and he was there signing autographs and stuff, and my wife got chatting to him and mentioned this film, and he's like, oh, send me the script. And then before we knew it, he was like, yeah, I'll come and do that. So we did that, and
That's insane.
that was like another kind of smaller part of it. And then but like I say, and then people started asking us for this Cleaver movie that I'd never planned on doing, and another project fell through, and so we just kind of went, well, we've booked the time off to go and do this other thing, so why don't we? So in 6 weeks I wrote a feature film with the help of another writer. I wrote a feature film version of Cleaver, and then 6 weeks later we were shooting it in like the depths of winter in like November. You know, it was freezing cold, and we were like out in the kind of streets with this guy dressed as a clown running around, and it was someone else. But I think I've just kind of been building it as I go, really, with a kind of overall plan of what I was going to do with each of these characters. But it evolves over time as well, I think. But each film is connected. On our website, there's a timeline that explains what comes first and last. Because so far Slasher House is the furthest point we've gone in the timeline.
Okay.
But that's always been by design. Because Slash House 3, which we should have already shot last year, but obviously there's a pandemic on. So, that would have been our first step beyond that point in the timeline. But yeah, we've really been just telling kind of prequel stories to fill that out, so that when we move forward, there's a broader scope of that. And I think like with Thorn, we did a prequel to the prequel, which was set in 1988. And we shot that in like we shot in widescreen, but also in like 4:3 old school square like video ratio. Amazing. So that we could release 2 versions of the film, one that looked awesome, like it had been made in 1988. So I think you just you do all this kind of mad stuff, really, and hope that it kind of connects together. But like I say, there's kind of an overall plan, but you just have to be quite fluid with how it's going, because you never know what's going to change, really.
That's awesome.
Looking at the website, I saw that you've got an absolute shed load of accolades as well for everything that you've done from however far back. I did look, and for some of my brain's letting me down. But did you ever expect your universe to become as big as it has, like as successful as it has?
No. I think we judge success in different ways, though. Like it just in general. So I think it was quite popular early on, I guess. Like in the kind of an indie horror sense.
Yeah.
you know, in that community, so we were just catering directly to that, and it's not a huge community, but it's but I think once we made Cleaver 2 in 2018, I think, and it was just a bit of a perfect storm of like that's what distributors were looking for, because a lot of the time we'd gone through distributors and then we'd found that they'd just not they'd put the film out, make a fortune off it, cover it all in expenses, and you'd never see anything. So for a few years we were really just making this stuff and putting it out ourselves. We were printing all the DVDs and selling them from our website. We were putting them on Amazon Prime ourselves as our own aggregator. We were just really working as ourselves, and then we'd sign the odd deal here and there with some stuff, but they were obviously much smaller because we knew that ultimately we'd probably get ripped off. So you'd kind of be like, well, you can have that for 3 years, but if you don't pay me, you're not getting anything else, kind of thing. And that's kind of how it would go for a long time. So we got like some big wider releases in like Walmart and stuff, but we never saw any money from that. But when we made Cleavers, it was just the right time. I think It Chapter 2 was about to come out, and they'd missed the boat on the first It, I think, because they hadn't expected it to be such a big hit. So we talked to a distributor called 101 Films, who released a lot of kind of like really classic, cool horror films that everyone remembers from the 80s. And they really loved Cleavers, and they were like, can we talk to you about what you're doing? You know, that kind of thing. So we went to them and they said, well, what's all this stuff? And we explained the universe, and we said, like, so this is kind of like our second iteration of that. We did these ones on a very low budget, and then, you know, and then we did these ones with a bit more, and we just kind of trying to, these are kind of like an up step in production value and etc. And they were like, okay, cool, we'll take them all. We want to take them. And so we were like, what? And they went, we'll take this one as well. And I was like, they pointed at Pandemonium, and I was like, oh, we haven't made that yet. And they were like, right, well, it's all right, we'll take it.
Oh, no way.
We were like, so I mean, that was a huge amount of pressure. Suddenly we're like, well, hang on, like, what if it's shit? So I mean, we were making Pandemonium while they were making posters for a film that didn't exist and putting it out at Cannes, and we were like, you know, it had posters up at Cannes before we'd even shot a frame of it. Like, it was absolutely mental. Like, but that we signed a deal to do worldwide with those guys. So suddenly our films were everywhere, not just in the UK, because they went out to like HMV, Asda, all that stuff like they do here. But they went out to like Walmart and all the big stores in the US. And so suddenly we found ourselves being contacted by people all over saying, like, you know, saw this, really liked it, you know, what you're doing next, this kind of thing. I got contacted by a guy who was like, oh, I'm really looking for a project. Do you mind if I do like a wiki about your universe? And so this guy went off and started making like a Wikipedia just about the Mycho universe and stuff. Nice. And it was just so that was where that, like, we saw a next step of success, I think. I mean, it's a tough one because, I mean, a lot like the music industry, there's very little money to be had in, even when you're moderately successful. It's very difficult to make a lot of money. But I mean, I think we managed to get enough to kind of pay people for their time and to kind of justify making the film in the end, I think. So that's something we've never experienced before. So in terms of success, we have we're not in debt from those films. So that is that's quite an achievement.
That's a big win, yeah.
But I think, I think in terms of where we're trying to get to, that was definitely a great step up in what we're trying to do, you know.
Absolutely, that's incredible. So I also noticed that you've announced 3 movies that are coming up. That were obviously Sash House 3, Straw Men, and The Wrath of Thorn. Is there anything you could tell us about them at all, or not?
Oh yeah, I'll talk about them all day.
Oh, let's go.
Let's get comfy.
So Slash House 3 is, like I say, is the first time that we've kind of stepped beyond the timeline that ends with Slasher House. And so the idea with that was, like I say, the last films we did like 4 killers versus this girl, you know, and it's kind of a reverse on the old slasher kind of foundation, like I was saying earlier, which is instead of having like a bunch of kids in the house with a serial killer, we were like, what if we have a bunch of serial killers in the house with this one girl, and they're basically all fighting over each other to mush her head in, you know. And then, so the sequel, we kind of expanded on her backstory. To not spoil it for other people, there's a twist at the end of Slash House 1 that kind of reveals something about her. So then Slash House 2 really delves into that backstory. But again, it was 4 serial killers and this one girl. And then Slash House 3 really continues on the other end of that. And so what I wanted to do was do something kind of like a bit over the top. Which I'm known to do. So we thought, okay, well, we've done like 4 serial killers, like each film. So I thought, what's the kind of next step up from that? So we decided to do this girl versus 25 serial killers.
What?
Yeah. And so it's her trapped in a government facility, basically fighting her way through, you know, like all these kind of various monsters and stuff. It's not quite, it's not like, it's hard to describe. It's not like fucking Mortal Kombat, you know, and she's just walking through fucking mushing people in there. But like over the course of the film, there are 25 different serial killers that get featured. But it's hard to describe really unless you've seen the other films, in which case you know that there's like a kind of structure to that. And it just kind of takes that structure and blows it into pieces, you know, and it's kind of, so it's fun. And we should, like I say, we should have made that last year. I don't, you probably can't see, but I have a tank down here that's somebody's legs. For the film, one of the characters literally has a tank for legs.
Amazing.
And like, so this tank got delivered like about a week before everyone got locked down. And I was like, oh man.
Oh.
So I've just had this massive tank in my house for like and the rest of the costume, obviously you can imagine what kind of costumes, like 25 serial killers and then like 5 other characters. You can imagine the kind of mass that would take to store those amount of costumes. Yeah. And all that stuff got delivered and then we got locked down. And so just for a year, I've had basically the entire contents of a feature film like that in my house. It's been fun. So yeah, that's that one. So that was the one that we're kind of currently looking to move forward with. But I mean, in the meantime, because we've been locked down, we've had loads of time to write stuff. Like, and so I thought, I mean, initially things were starting to kind of wind down a little bit at the end of the summer. And so I thought, well, you know, maybe we could do something, probably not Slash House 3, because that's huge, you know, but maybe something a bit smaller. So I wrote a few kind of pandemic-friendly movies. And one of them was a film called Strawmen, which is kind of like, I've always wanted to do a Killer Scarecrow film, but, you know, they're always like, what's that guy in the field? Oh, he's coming to get you, you know. Oh. So, and it's a guy running around in a scarecrow costume. So I thought, like, well, like, what's an interesting take on that? So it's hard to talk about without spoiling it, but I think we've come up with like something that's kind of a bit more like The Thing meets Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, you know. And so it's a little bit more kind of body horror than it is like a full straight Scarecrow movie, you know.
Okay.
And so, but it's a really, really small cast of stuff. So we cast that kind of towards the autumn, hoping that we'd be able to go and kind of make that in October, and then, you know,
cheers, COVID.
Electric Boogaloo happened. So, so yeah, so that's kind of. But I mean, I guess we're kind of hoping that as things begin to ease up, we'll maybe go and start with that, which is a much smaller scope project than 25 serial killers, government facility, you know, martial arts every 5 seconds kind of thing. And then Wrath of Thorn is the end of the Thorn trilogy, which is like, I mean, Thorn's like my my favorite of all. He's like the first character I created. Like back in like 2000, I wanted to make like a bunch of Halloween fan films, but I was like, oh, if I do that, like then that's just somebody else's work that I'm, I'm making something of. And so Thorn kind of became his own thing over the years. I kind of redesigned him completely so that he bared no resemblance to that. But I had these cool ideas for a story. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just take the kind of bits that aren't inspired by Halloween and I'll just kind of go and do my own thing. And also over the years, I've been kind of working on that. And I've always had a kind of very clear iteration of Thorn's story. And so I'm kind of getting to finish that off now, which is cool because the way time works in like the Thorn movies is weird. So it's now we're able to take like characters from like 1988 and 1962 and 2012, and they all kind of get blended into this film that's set in 2020, and it's cool. And we should be filming that like right now, but obviously pandemic.
Cheers COVID again. But aren't you not worried that Slash House 3 people might be like, cool, so that guy that was in it, could you make a movie out of him?
Oh, well, I'm way ahead of you. Way ahead of you.
My next 25 projects will be...
Well, I mean, essentially that's what happened, though. With Slash House 3 is I kind of went, right, let's do all these things, because now, like, if I want to do anything, I can go through this catalogue of characters I've got and go, right, where I want to go and do, like, a Blair Witch-esque film. And I go, I've got a character for that. I'll take Twiggy, who's one of our kind of monstery characters, and I go, right, I'll put him in I'll put him in like that kind of movie. Or we talked about doing like a POV slasher, and we've got a character that's just perfect for that. So we were like, right, okay, well we'll go and tell that story using that character, or we wanted to do. So there's a character that's like, he's been in a couple of our other things, and he's like a fictional character in the Mycho universe. So whenever the characters are watching TV in one of these films, they're watching this series of slasher movies that exists within the series of slasher movies, if that makes any sense.
That's so clever.
That's cool as fuck.
Every so often we go and film like a kind of new version of this thing to put on the TV in the background of these movies. And that was actually one of the things we were working on just before the pandemic hit. We were doing a new kind of short version of this that would go into Slash House 3, but also kind of be its own short film as well. So that character makes it into Slash House 3. And then, so we've been talking about where do we go with that character, because you kind of get a sense of who's going to be popular, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
As you start doing read-throughs and stuff. So straight away we were like, well, this guy's going to be massive. Like, everyone's going to want this guy. So you kind of know that. So you start, right, well, what's his film about? Right, jot that idea down, and then, but you never know, like, so you kind of pick who you think people might want to see. So with the first one, I think we thought Thorn, people will want to see more of him. So we started developing that early on. And then people said, oh, well, we'd like to see more of Cleaver as well. So we go, oh, right, well, where's that going? I'll just drop that there, and then again with Slash House 2, there was loads of interest in the panda, but we kind of already knew we were going to do a film with Molly, who was the little girl who controls dolls with her mind. So we were like, we thought, right, well, kind of know we're going to do something with that character, but who else are we going to do a film with? And then obviously people tell you who they want, so you kind of guess who you think is going to be popular, and then people will let you know what else you do. And so that's why you've got to be a little bit malleable, but don't detract from your overall vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, just quickly, I'm thinking, does writing about dark subjects ever take a toll on your attitude to life at all? Because you've just become a father, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Well, it's a tough one, really. Sometimes I write dark stuff and I think, like, no one's going to let me make this. Like, So I send it to actors and I expect them to turn up outside my house with flaming torches and pitchforks, get them. Well, I mean, a lot of the time, like, actors just want to kind of be pushed in to their kind of psychological limit anyway. So that's not really an issue. I mean, in terms of, I guess you kind of it's more the other way. I think you exercise your demons a little bit when you're writing these things in terms of relationships between characters and stuff. So you do kind of have dark, kind of like feelings and things that you put into those characters, or you deal with those characters. I think, I mean, my relationship with my son has not been particularly easy because there was a lot of problems when he was born to begin with. He wasn't very well, and he was taken away from us like within the first 24 hours.
No.
And we were like terrified we weren't going to get the same baby back, or, like all these horrible things go through your mind. And then that put quite a strain on me mentally over the next few months, just really trying to make sure he was okay. So, I mean, there were outside circumstances and stuff. My wife was having problems with a stalker and stuff, which, which made life a little bit harder as well, And so I think, like, come the end of that year, I was just like, I was psychologically checked out. I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I think I was just recovering from that when we landed in a pandemic as well. So I was like, fuck. So it had been a tough old time anyway. But again, I'm writing scripts at the time. So a lot of this stuff I deal with just by putting it into these things. But we found out that in August, I think, September, that he has a rare condition called Angelman syndrome, where he won't be able to talk or walk or anything or anything for like his whole life. So that's been like a big thing to deal with as well. So you take that stuff and you do just put it back into your work, and you deal with it the best you can that way. And I don't ever feel like it comes the other way. Like I don't feel like it ever jumps out and goes, right, you're coming with me, horrible bastard. It's more like a script's going, oh, hello, sir, have we got some nice, friendly, fun ideas today? And I go, oh, really? Yeah? I think. And then I throw the script down, quivering, and it's like, please don't read me. It's a bit more like that, really.
Fucking hell.
So when you read it, all like ghouls and ghosts fly out of it.
Yeah, Actor's gone, pretty on, mate. That's dark. I haven't read anything yet.
I think you've just given him his next movie, Tom. The haunted script.
There we go. I mean, they're all like that. Honestly, they are.
Phenomenal.
So what I love about Mycho as well is looking at the website. It's not only movies. There's comics. There's podcasts. There's even toys coming.
Oh yeah,
it's absolutely insane. Do you have like a team of people that helps you with all these ideas, or are they just off your big beautiful brain?
I mean, of course I've got. I mean, I'd be fucked if it was just me. I mean, so it's really a lot of. I mean, I try to keep control of as much as I can, really. So a lot of it is because years ago I met at the premiere of Slash House. I met like a famous director, like a proper famous director. And I won't say who he is because it'll embarrass him when I say the next bit.
Okay.
But he came up to me drunk afterwards, and he was like, "Hey mate, the problem with you is," he goes, "you're doing too much." He goes, "Get other people to do it for you. Don't do everything yourself." And I was like, "All right," like, sound advice, thanks. And then I thought, I don't know if I agree with that. And so what I've kind of spent my years doing is just kind of trying to be good at as much stuff as I can, but then understanding that, like, so when we make a comic, I tend to be like head artist and writer for that. But then if I need anything, I will say, can someone just do this portion for me? Or like with a film or something, I'll take on lighting or whatever, but I'll say, so this is what we're doing, but can someone help me set that up? Or I need to make a prop. So this is what it is. Here's the design, but can someone come and cut these pieces out for me or help me create a latex casting for this thing, or like. And so I tried to stay on top of that as much as I can, but obviously I could not do it without the kind of like really kind people. I mean, my wife's my producer, so that helps. And I mean, really, she resisted that for as long as possible. Like, she really did. She was like, I was like, well, I could really do it with the producer, and she's like, and then eventually, she was like, right, like, she's the best person for the job. So she does a lot of that stuff. She does a lot of dealing with the kind of side of it, which is organising everything and making sure that's all kind of going to plan. And then we have other people who come and work on the sets and stuff. And you can't do everything yourself, definitely. But I think also farming stuff out to other people is a mistake. So I mean, I tend to take care of as much as I can as possible. So that, I mean, the comic books, like I say, I write and do the art for those. And then the action figures, I mean, I sit there into the night just 3D sculpting. And but then I've got a friend who, I mean, he's really into like 3D printing and things like that. So rather than me sit here fighting with a 3D printer all day, or or trying to do resin castings or whatever, I send stuff to him and he goes, "This isn't working," and I go away and I'll fix, the joints or whatever, and I'll send it back to him, and he goes, "Right, that's better. There's a hole in your hand. Right, okay, I'll go and fix that. Your cleavers don't fit. Right, I'll go and fix that." And it's just kind of like that, really. And you just kind of try and keep you try to keep it as close to your chest as you can. I mean, over the years, I've really resisted other people doing writing for me, just because of the legal headaches it causes me and things. So, you do start. There's a lot of that as well. I think is that I mean, honestly, what I'd love to do is just sit here and go, "Yes, go and write me Cleaver 4," and I'll sit here and send it. Not good enough. It needs more clown. I'd love just to do that. Or people go, "Oh, what do you think of this design, sir?" And I'll go, "Make the hands bigger and return." And I would fucking love to just sit and do that. But also, what I tend to find is that it causes me like shitloads of like legality headaches and things like that. Or it has in the past. So then I just go, "Fuck it, I'll just do it myself, and you can bum off." So that's kind of it, really. Yeah.
When I mentioned those things you did, I was expecting, I've got this guy who does comics, this guy, I'm working in this company for toys. I'm not expecting, I do this.
Who wants to draw comics and doesn't mind being paid in the comic itself, then please get in touch, But also, I mean, there's a big thing as well where I'm in a really frustrating place in my career where I've got too much to do that I can't do it all myself, but I don't make enough money to pay somebody else to come and help me. Yeah. So what I really don't want to do is say, "Hey, you come and work for free on my thing," because there's a certain amount of kind of ethics that I think that's a bit of an overstep of, and like, I mean, it's a lot with our films, really. They're very low budget. So a lot of the times you're kind of saying, "Who wants to come and do this?" And then I'll do the shit jobs on set, or Anna will do the shit jobs, because you go, well, you don't want to say to people, "Do you want to come and work on a film?" And you'll be spending the day getting people coffee and cleaning up their shit out of the portaloo, because who wants to do that? And that's not helping anybody. But I find it very easy to go, "Do any actors want to come and be in this film?" And you'll get this character to put in your reel, or you'll get to play this thing, and it'll get released on DVD, or it'll go to these places, and hopefully that'll be good for you. And if that's not what you want to do, then like, that's fine. Like, but if it's an opportunity for somebody, then that's who we want. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to do it, come and do it. Like, and if you don't, like, completely fucking understandable. Like, I mean, I don't want to do it half the time, but but I try to make sure that those fun jobs are people who want to come and do them, and who are going to get something out of them. and then anything that's shit or that like is not worth kind of the time. It's hard to describe it. Like anything that's kind of that I feel is going to put people out or they should be paid for, like then I'll do it because like I'm not going to kick my own head in for not paying myself. I've been doing that for 20 years. So,
so your YouTube channel is also incredible. I love the content you've got on there, like cast interviews, real horror. The one that intrigues me the most is the gritty reboots.
Excellent.
That is such an awesome concept.
Well, yeah, I think we've just changed it actually recently. So initially it all came from this idea. Me and my friend, he's been in a few of our films, called Lewis Cooper. He's also got his own YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, the Lewis Cooper Experience, I think it's called. He's got his own channel there, and we'd always talked about this reboot of Home Alone called McAllister, where like a drug-addled Macaulay Culkin returns for revenge on the burglars that tormented him as a child. And it was just kind of this running joke that we were like doing. We were like messing around with this gritty reboot of Home Alone, and I said we should do a show that's basically we'll take stuff and just do this to it, like make it horrible, and so that's kind of where it came from, and I think we started off with, I can't remember what the first episode was now, Biker Mice from Mars, I think, and we took that and just kind of turned it into like, I think it was like The Raid, and just kind of made a film about mice like fighting their way through kind of like the Bronx, and punching people in the head and to stop like corrupt politicians who were really fishmen, and that's where it started. And we just so we do one of those every month now. We just did Highlander this afternoon.
Oh, that's awesome.
What we used to do was we'd put it to a vote, and then we'd go away and we'd both write a pitch and come back and talk about our pitches. But I felt like we weren't getting a lot. It was taking days to write these pitches because they were getting longer and longer. Like I was turning up with like 5-page Thundercats movies by the end of it. Like I was going, I can't do it. Like, I'm spending 4 days writing a pitch and then a day recording the pitch for it. So we started kind of doing more. We did some live shows over Halloween, and I think we did one for the Mycho anniversary. So we did some kind of live ones where we pitch live. People send us ideas and we were pitching them. And I think we came up with like, one was Crocodile Dundee versus Predator. And we did Thomas the Human Tank Engine, which was like a human centipede, Thomas the Tank Engine crossover. And it was dark stuff.
That sounds horrifying.
It was not good. Lewis just checked out halfway through. And I was desperately trying to hold this thing together because I think Boris Johnson was doing like you're all going to get locked down again announcement at the time when we went live, just out of the blue. He decided he was going to do this announcement. So we had like very like few people, anyone who was tuning in was going, oh, what's it? No, I'm out. And just going straight out, so we were it was all just a horrible experience, but it was a good pitch. So we kind of decided to go with a bit more of a kind of modern, like more of a live vibe to the new one. So we did Highlander today, and we just started kind of pitching ideas around. And we came up with a pretty good one, I think, which will go on our Patreon on Monday, and then it'll be on YouTube in a month. So we have them on Patreon for like a month first, and then they go to the YouTube for free. So
there's the same as the podcast, the MyCast podcast that you do. So the YouTube, are they linked? Because I was looking at those.
Yeah, they're the same thing.
Ah, okay. That's fair enough. That scraps on my podcast out there. Questions like
so the podcast. So it started off. We were doing interviews with the cast members and stuff. So that goes out. All these things also go out as a podcast, as well. But we do video versions that go up on YouTube. But if you've got iTunes or Spotify or whatever, you can listen to all these things there as well. But Gritty Reboots, we also do a video version for the YouTube.
So we hinted at this at the start of the episode. So you directed music videos. Now, I saw that you'd done for Michael Schenker of Scorpions, Blaze Bailey, formerly of Iron Maiden, who is a wonderful guy. I met him once many years ago.
Yes.
How did this come about?
Which one?
Well, just getting into music videos in general. I thought it was just those two, and then you drop. I've done about 50 of them. So,
It's really like so. I mean, I've done music video stuff before. Like I say, I did. I went to like a film school college in Newcastle, where we learned to make corporate videos, and part of that was shooting like music videos and stuff, which was so it always been something I'd quite enjoyed, but I'd never really planned to get into it really. When we did Slash House, we couldn't afford to rent equipment. So what I did was I bought like about £1,000 of camera equipment on my Argus card. So that, and I was just basically like, well, I'm going to have to fucking pay this back at some point. But I had no money because I just sunk every penny I had into getting to this film set and making this movie. So I was like, what can I do to make some money? And someone said, well, I'll pay you 300 quid to make us a music video. And I was like, what? So that's what I did. Well, it kind of started. It was weird. So what started off was there was a guy in the first feature film that we tried to make. He was in a band called Exit State, and they were kind of coming up at the time. So they were like, "Oh well, would you come and make us a music video?" And I was like, "Yeah, sounds fun." So we went and shot like a music video based around like characters from this film, and then somehow, I have no idea how it happened, but that ended up being like the #1 most requested video on Kerrang, like in the summer of like 2010, I think. It was fucking mental. Like I'd honestly no idea how it happened, but it happened. It was called Lost Beyond Belief by Exit State. It was massive. Like honestly, blew my mind. And so then off the back of that, obviously people started going, "Come do one for us," and I was like, all right. Yeah. So I just started doing these cheap music videos to pay off my Argus cards that I'd put this camera on, and that's how it started. And then obviously I needed to make some money because filmmaking doesn't pay very much. So people would start going, "Oh, you make us one," and it just never kind of stopped. And then eventually we did one for Blaze Bailey. Well, he was featured on it. We got hired to do a music video, and he was featured in it.
oh, right.
So it was there's another band, and they had him featured on the song. So we went and we had to go and shoot all his stuff in this forest one day, which was good, and he was doing some acting and stuff. And then he invited us to go for a drink with him when he was playing in Manchester a few weeks later. So we went and kind of met up with him, spent the kind of evening with him while he was doing the gig and stuff. And he said, "Oh, I really enjoyed all that acting we were doing on the music video." And I was like, "All right, cool." I said, "I'm recording some voiceover stuff for Slash House tomorrow." I said, "Can you, if I send you the stuff I need, do you want to do that? Do you want to record it and send it over to me?" And he was like, "All right." So he ended up doing the voice of like the main bad guy in Slash House.
That's amazing.
Mad. But in the meantime, I'd gone, I mean, honestly, like, so back then I didn't have 2 pence to rub together. Like, we were really struggling to pay rent. And a band from Brazil, they were kind of like a hybrid of like some UK musicians and a guy from Brazil who was quite popular over there called Code of Silence. They were like a super group that kind of got put together.
That name sounds familiar. I think I know them. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like really quite big for like a very short amount of time. I think they only did 1 album and then kind of disbanded. But they needed a video, but they couldn't afford to fly the guy over and pay for the video. So I basically did the video for next to nothing so they could fly this guy over. And I said, I'll help you out here. And we ended up driving up to Glasgow. I didn't drive and my wife didn't drive at the time. So I had to like rope my mate in, who was like the guitarist in my band at the time. I said, please mate, can you drive us to Glasgow from Preston? And we went to this freezing cold church and shot this video like all day in the like -5, like the floor was covered in ice inside the church. It was horrendous. But we shot this video. I got paid like literally, I'm not kidding, next to nothing for it. But I took all the photos that they used inside the album as well, which was pretty cool. So that was like the first time I got published as a photographer completely by accident. but I did the job and I never thought anything of it. And then Michael Schenker, a few years later, Michael Schenker was touring the UK, and they were kind of doing it a bit like out of their own pocket kind of thing. So apparently they'd asked this guy who had helped out if they knew anyone who could do a good video on the cheap. And I got the call and was like, do you want to come and shoot Michael Schenker's new video? It was class. He wanted to wear all these kind of, he wanted to wear like a cloak with like this mask on, and he was walking around with his guitar case. And I'm literally following him around Manchester, like wearing this mad like garb, like filming all these bits. Honestly, I was completely out of my depth, but I went down and I had like a slider about this long, and they wanted all these like really fancy like shots and that, and my slider is like, you know, about 60 centimeters or something. And like, honestly, it was just all day trying to figure out how to get all these kind of really nice fancy shots, like with what was essentially like, you know, a £500 camera and some random gear that I'd picked up over the years. And it was just, and we did it, you know, and it went all right. And I thought, you know, like it went well, the video came out well, but I thought that'll be the end of that then. And then he hired me to do his next 2 music videos. Like on this, like I got a phone call from Taro, which is his son / manager. And he was like, oh, Michael wants you to come and do the next 2 videos. Can you come and do that? And then on the back of kind of the popularity of my videos had nothing to do with this. But on the back of this project doing really well, he got picked up by another major label to go out to Japan. So then I got unhired. Because they had major label money then. So the label picks who does it then. So I got, and obviously they're not in this country very often. So, because he drove from Germany to come and film a music video with me in Milton Keynes, you know, and we honestly, it was the weirdest experience in the world. We went and shot like in like a little, I mean, in Milton Keynes we don't have music studios or anything, so we had to go and rent like a room in like, it's like an old bathhouse that's turned into like, you know, like an education centre. Mm-hmm. So we managed to rent a room to like build like kind of like miniature set in there so we could film this music video. We filmed that in the morning. He gave me a priceless guitar to look after, went and had some lunch, and I just had Michael Schenker's like custom made yin yang guitar sat at my house all day. And then we went up to like this hill in Milton Keynes at sunset and filmed this other video of him like just wailing solos like as the sun went down, and it was just mental. And then he was like, thank you for everything, Michael. And I was like, you go, I'll see you next time, yeah? I was like, yeah, cool. And then he drove off in his like sports car, and it was the last time I saw him. It's crazy. Yeah? I was getting texts from everyone I knew all day going, can you get his autograph for me? No.
So you briefly mentioned it then. I wanted to touch on the fact that you also have a band called Subject 7.
Oh, I mean, that was too long ago. I think we that band disbanded in 2013.
Okay.
But since then we so I mean, Subject 7 started off. I was in a band called Hockey Mask Heroes, which was like a the idea originally was that we were going to like write songs based on like horror movies and action movies and stuff that we really liked. So we wrote probably our most famous song was a song called Phantasm that was based on the movie of the same title, obviously. And then so Subject 7 was kind of like that went on for a couple of years, and I mean, like I say, we did all right. We never signed to like a major label. We kind of did a lot of stuff ourselves, but we did released like 4 music videos on channels and stuff, and we toured all over the country. We must have done about 250 shows all over the country. It was
wow,
like
nice.
It was a hell of a couple of years, but I think it was quite draining on everybody. And ultimately, I'll be as diplomatic as I possibly can be. Politics pulled the whole thing apart, I think. And so after that, I just kind of went back to Hockey Mask Heroes as a kind of more of a studio project, really. And that too, up until recently, I'd been producing all of our scores under that band. Originally, me and a couple of the original members came back. When I moved down to the south, I just became more about me doing kind of my own thing, which was quite nice. And then we recently launched a project called Dixon with 2 X's, in a nice homage to a famous 80s band, Dokken. And so that's kind of where we're at now in terms of writing music. So there's a full-length album coming out, but also we write the scores for all of our films, which we release. I think if you go to Bandcamp, is it Mycho Records at Bandcamp? You can find all the scores for our films, and there's some of our kind of albums and stuff up there as well. And
amazing, just incredible.
The main thing I'm taking out of this story today is basically you want to see something done, so you're going to do it. And I absolutely admire and love it.
Well, I think someone once said to me, here we go. This is one that you'll really appreciate. Someone once said to me that Rihanna can do so many things. She can sing and she can act and she can dance and she's an artist and a photographer. And I said, but can she do any of those things well? And I'm very much Rihanna in this. But, no, I mean, I like. It goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Is I'm not particularly naturally good at anything, like genuinely. But bloody hell, I'll give it a good try, and I don't give up very easily. Is my main problem. So, like, I've never been naturally very good at anything, but I'm willing to put the time in to figure it out. So, I think perseverance is the key here. I do have a saying that I say all the time to anyone who wants to make films, I guess, or do anything, but just make films no matter what. Like, and just as long as you remember that, replace films with whatever it is you want to do in the world. And just do that, like, because I mean, I think if we've learned anything over the last year or so, like, life is fucking short as fuck, like, really, really short.
Absolutely.
Like, and even if you're alive, you could just have to spend every bloody day in the house doing nothing, like, you know. So that it's a privilege that can be revoked without even thinking about it. So, you know, if you want to do something, do it while you've got the chance. Like, bloody hell, I'd hate to be sat here now thinking, oh, I always wanted to make that feature film, and now I'm stuck in the house, and I don't know when I'll be able to ever do that now. You know, like, instead, at least I'm thinking, when am I going to get to make feature film number 10? This is very annoying. You know, oh, well, I better work on my comic. You know, and at least I've got something to do, you know, and I think if I didn't, I'd go mad.
My final question coming out of all of this, though, is with all of these projects, everything you do you actually ever see your wife?
Well, I mean, luckily, like I say, I work with her, so she's my producer. So we spend most of our time together. I mean, a pandemic's really helped.
I suppose so, yeah.
We haven't left the house since like March, apart from like doctor's appointments. So we see each other all day, every day. So yeah, but I mean, you don't have a social life is ultimately the downside of that. Like, I always find people talk about rap parties all the time. Like, you know, they go, oh, I made a film a couple of years ago. The rap party was incredible. And I go, fucking, I don't have time for rap parties. You've got to go on to the next thing, you know. And it's, I think there was the odd time when we'd nip to the pub after for a couple before we've gone home, you know. But yeah, in general, like, you sacrifice other stuff you do. And for me, a lot of the time, that's any kind of social life.
Tom, did you have any final questions before we move on?
No, absolutely smashed them all in like one answer. But MJ, thank you so much, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Enjoyed it.
It's been great. It's been really good. I've enjoyed the crap out of it.
Now, before we get out of it, we do like to play a little game with our guests. It's called the Quick Fire Round. We just ask you 6 questions and you answer them as quick as you can. It's as simple as that.
Okay, cool.
First one. Favourite cheese?
Oh, Stilton.
Oh.
You don't know till you've You've had it every day for months.
First ever concert.
Oh, I Maiden.
Happy days. Love it. Favourite cartoon when you were growing up?
Oh, Sonic the Hedgehog, the second iteration.
What? I love it. I was not expecting that answer. I like
Well, they
that.
did Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and then they did the one that was like all dark and gritty, and like he was a freedom fighter, and it was incredible.
I think I remember that. It was on my Fox
yeah.
Kids.
It was on. It was on Channel 4 here. That's all I remember.
Who would play you in a movie of your life?
Oh, Ashton Kutcher. You see it though. Yeah.
I can see it, yeah. I think I already know the answer to this one coming out of this interview, but your favourite horror movie icon?
Probably Michael Myers, yeah.
And any advice you'd give to young MJ Dixon?
Stop fucking about. Make stuff faster. Stop being a dickhead. Like, procrastinate too much.
Incredible. Before we get out of here, before I ask for any plugs and so on, I do need to mention the fact that April Fools is the greatest play on words for a movie title I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you.
I just had to say that because I was scrolling through the IMDb and I was just like, that is the greatest film title I've ever seen.
Well, they're the fake. That's the fake movie series within the movies is the April Fool's Day saga.
Oh, that's even better.
So yeah. Well, we recently did I was doing a completely unrelated short film, that was like set in the cinema, and we had a mock-up of April Fool's Day Part 7, Wild Wild Jest, made up and we had it put up in the Odeon. Honestly, it was like one of the best days of my life. Is just seeing this giant poster in the IMAX frame of the Odeon, like for this film. Beautiful.
That is incredible. But so right now, before we end this, any plugs, any social medias you want people to check out?
I mean, it's all the usual stuff. I have to do this at the end of my podcast. I always forget everything. But yeah, if you go to mycho.co.uk, mycho.co.uk, we've got loads of stuff there. Like you can buy DVDs and there's comics and short films to watch, and you can see all of our action figures. We do like VHS releases every so often throughout the year. There's T-shirts that we do every so often. It's just all sorts of mad stuff you can get there. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Mycho, MyCHO. You can subscribe monthly and you get like, obviously we used to, before the pandemic, we do about 3 or 4 short films that are exclusive to that every year. But in the meantime, we've been doing more podcast stuff just to fill in that gap until we can start making those films again. But you can subscribe for like £1.50 a month and you get like loads of cool kind of exclusive content. You get it all early at the minute, but as well, when we do short films, you get those like a year before anybody else does. So it's good times. And we've got a comic coming out in that's specific for Patreon and digital. So there's a new iteration of the Mycho comic coming out called Mycho Universe, which will be coming directly to Patreon first and then out to the world after that. And yeah, I think if you go to hmv.com and type in MJ Dixon on the store, we've got like a bunch of films out there. So if you buy them and watch them and then say they're good on the internet, that would be helpful. And also write to our distributor and tell them you really like them and to pay us to make more of them. So
Noted,
yeah. Absolutely incredible. MJ, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Absolutely a blast.
Thank you, man. Have a great evening. Enjoy and take care of yourself.
See you later, my friend.
Yeah, pal.